guys, it's Izzy here with the first video of 2023. I hope you guys are having a happy new year, because today is like the day for New Year, like the day the mail's not delivered, all that kind of thing, since the new year did fall on a Sunday, which to me is so satisfying. I love, because the week starts on Sunday, kind of. It depends on the person, but just on looking at my planner and everything, it's just so satisfying to see it like that. But today we're going to be talking about last year, talking about all the books that I read in 2022 and my thoughts on them. I will throw in a few stats here and there in the video. Let's get into it. These are going to be my stats from Goodreads, so it is slightly different from the stats that I actually recorded in my reading journal, but it's only like, it's not a huge difference, so we're just gonna go by what Goodreads says. Let's go check out Goodreads now. My year in books according to Goodreads. By Goodreads, I read 41,558 pages, which I think was actually a little bit less than that. And then I read a total of 106 books, which that is 100% true. The shortest book that I read in 2022 was Poso Wells by Gabriella Ellman, which was 160 pages. I'm not sure who translated it. It looks like Dick Cluster was the translator from the Spanish. And then another non-American book is, for my longest book, was The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandra Dumas, which was 1,138 pages in length. The average book length in 2022 was 392 pages. I was gonna guess 306, but it was slightly more than that. So the most shelved book that I read this year was To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, which has been shelved 8,270,579 times. And then my least shelved book was Medici Legacy by Matteo Strucco, and I am not sure who the translator is on that one, but 23 people also shelved that book. My average rating for 2022 was 3.4 stars, and the highest rated book on Goodreads that I read was Educated by Tara Westover, which I think I gave that book a 2-star. It is in my unhaul pile, but we are doing an unhaul sometime soon. Stay tuned for that. And then the first review I did this year was The Book of the Unnamed Midwife, and that is by Meg Ellison. I gave it a 5 out of 5. That is a favorite of mine. Absolutely loved it. And I will be doing a video of my favorites of 2022, so also stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't. Now, let's look at all of the books that I read this year. I'm going to give a very brief, if I liked it, disliked it, whatever. So again, The Book of the Unnamed Midwife, loved it. The Half-Drone King, I honestly don't remember that much, but I wasn't a huge fan of it, so it was either, I'm going to say it was probably a 2-star. The Book of Edda, I didn't love as much as I loved the first book, The Book of the Unnamed Midwife, but I still really enjoyed it. Romina by Junji Ito, I don't give ratings to graphic novels, but this was my first manga. Then we had Horus Rising by Dan Abbott. I was just so confused throughout that whole book. So if you are going into that, be sure you've done the role-playing game before, because you'll have a better understanding. The Call of Cthulhu and Other Weird Stories by H.P. Lovecraft. I don't rate anthologies, at least not then, I do now, but it was good. The Book of Flora, I enjoyed. Infinity Country, this was an honorable mention for best books of the year. I really enjoyed it. And then we have Ubik by Philip K. Dick. I liked this one. Then we had Shortest Way Home by Pete Buttigieg, who, I love him. That's who I want to be president. And therefore, I did love his book. The Burning God by R.F. Kuang. Again, I loved it, but it wasn't the strongest book in the series. We have Dark Knight. I don't rate graphic novels. Follow Me Back. Didn't really like it. It was fine, but I wouldn't read it again. So Meet You in the Middle by Devin Daniels. I did really like this one. It's kind of a political romance between two staffers in Washington. Then we have Night Spinner. This was just your average YA fantasy. It didn't bring anything new to the table. We had The Dill by Elle Kennedy, which is a new favorite for me. I did not expect a lot going in. Absolutely loved it. As I said, became a favorite. We have These Old Shaves by Georgette Heyer. I did really like it. I loved the setting and everything about that. The Roughest Draft by Austin Sigmund Broca and Emily Wibberley. Didn't like it. the characters stressed me out. Like, they needed to be more grown up. Medici Ascendancy, I did enjoy. Darth Bane, Rule of Two, I do think that one was that one the best in the series? I don't remember. I know what happened in the series, but I don't know which happened in each book. Anxious People by Frederick Backman, loved it. I gave it a 4.5. This was a 5-star prediction for me, so in Goodreads it did go in as a 5-star. Loved it. Recommend it. The Siren of Sussex, I liked this book and do recommend. Valentine by Elizabeth Wetmore, that is another new favorite of mine and was up there to be book of the year for me. Then, which Ernest Hemingway? The Sun Also Rises, I didn't really enjoy that much. A Light Too Bright by Samuel Miller, it was fine. The Lucky Ones by Julian Paccio, this is one that I was really confused throughout, so... Medici Supremacy, this I think was my favorite book in the Medici series. Again, I never remember what happened in what book, but I did really like it. Hamnet, this was a big disappointment for me, but I feel like it could be better on reread, but it was just too, like, the author was trying too hard. Sorry. Ken Follett, Fall of Giants, absolutely loved this one, 5 out of 5. It was exactly what I wanted to read. News of the World by Paulette Giles, this one did nothing for me. The Overstory by Richard Powers, I did enjoy it, but I felt like it just didn't have that 5-star quality for me. To Kill a Mockingbird, I did enjoy, but not a new favorite. Yellowbird, this was my first true crime, so I don't really have a lot to judge it on. Another Batman comic. Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby, I did not like. It was too much for me. The Crown's Game, again, another kind of like basic YA fantasy, but I did enjoy it more so than I do usually YA fantasy. We have Medici Legacy, I finished out that series, and I did enjoy that book greatly. I Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Really liked this one, and I want to read all his books. I read a shortened version of The Tempest by William Shakespeare, and honestly, I do think it was a good entry point, but I do definitely need to read like the full version. We Have Passing by Nella Larson, which I enjoyed. The Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin, it was fine, it was a good book. I read the 1984 graphic novel, then I read Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, another romance where the characters annoyed me. And there was just some things in that I think were kind of creepy, but weren't seen as creepy by the book. But okay, then we had The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. I did enjoy. The Silver Eagle by Ben Kane. I am super happy to be back in that universe, and it just explored so much of the ancient world, and I really enjoyed that. Then we had Dynasty of Evil from the Darth Bane series, Star Wars. Again, I enjoyed that series, but I don't remember what happened in what book. Postal Wells, it was a really memorable reading experience. Going with the Wind, I do think the book was better than the movie, and it offered a lot more than the movie did. Mecca by Susan Strait, it sounded like something that I would enjoy, but it didn't execute well on page. It was just very sporadic. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, absolutely loved it. It's a new favorite of mine, and Quentin Tarantino did a fantastic job at writing his first novel. The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, I honestly didn't have high expectations going in since I didn't enjoy The Secret History, but I ended up loving this one. And then An American Marriage by Tahari Jones wasn't really a memorable reading experience for me. Our American Friend by Anna Pitiniak, this was a memorable reading experience, but it was just an average book. Tigress of Forelai, I did enjoy this as I did learn a lot about Katharina Sforza, who is a woman who I find super interesting. I read my first poetry collection, which is Call Us What We Carry by Amanda Gorman, and I do recommend it, even if it's my only first one, so I can't really heavily judge it, but I did like it. Another Batman comic. Then we had Hawkins Horrors, which I felt like just added so much new lore to Stranger Things. In Bed with the Tudors, this one was... It gave me a lot of insightful stuff, but I would have been fine without reading it. Then we had Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Dower. Absolutely love, love, love this book. One of the best books I've ever read and highly recommend. Lessons in Chemistry. This was a lot of people's favorite book, but for me this was just an average book. I thought the main character was kind of annoying and I don't understand the hype. Straight Into Darkness by Faye Kellerman. DNF. Lucas on the Line, I did enjoy this book, but I did feel like the characters were really immature, but they are like 14, so it makes sense. The Candle and the Flame, this one, it just felt like the character just had a split, changed altogether, just had the same name, even though kind of not, but not a huge fan. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I did not expect to love this book, but it was amazing. 5 out of 5 star. Happy Hour by Shay Stahl. Worst romance book I've ever read. Funny you should ask. This was a cute romance, and I had like the perfect picture in my head of what was happening. Mrs. Everything by Jennifer Weiner. Loved it, and I recommend that one to everybody, and really to see what real feminism is. Then we had Lady Sunshine by Amy Mason Doan. This one really like pops a color in my mind, and I did enjoy it. Voyager by Diana Gabaldon. Love, love, love. Outlander, can't go wrong. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was a 5 out of 5 for me, and I thought it was better than The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, so there's that. Oh Euphoria by Allegra Hyde. Reading it, it was average, but the ideas and themes that it presented were amazing. Then Leave the World Behind by Ruman Alam. This book was just odd. It was extremely sexual without needing to be, and I don't know, like, I don't plan on reading anything else by that author. Haunted Ground by Aaron Hart. That book just went on and I was bored. Henry IV Part 1 by William Shakespeare. I did really like this, as I love that time period in history. Bunny by Mona Awad. Another book I don't understand the hype for. It was too confusing for its own good. Or I could just be really dumb. And then we had The Night Manager by John le Carre. It was a good book. The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, the best nonfiction of the year, 5 out of 5. Loved it. Then we had Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino. This is just the perfect travel book. If you are somebody who has wanderlust, pick this up. A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This was a fine thriller, but I don't get why it was nominated for so many things for like best thriller. Like, it was a fine time. Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. This book did get confusing at times, but I overall did really enjoy it and recommend it. Midwinter. This book was just dull and bland. Wouldn't recommend. The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. I did not like. That book just gave me too many details and just, yeah, didn't like it. The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Really thrilling and is the perfect, like, it did its genre perfectly. She Has Her Mother's Laugh by Carl Zimmer. 4 out of 5 for me. I did learn a lot, but a lot did also go over my head. Then we had Don't Cry for Me by Daniel Black. This is one that I didn't really know what to think went in, but it made me so emotional and one of my favorite books of the year. Nosferatu by Joe Hill. It was a fine horror time. And it actually like made me laugh out loud, which is rare for books to do. Peach Blossom Spring by Melissa Fu. Loved the ideas and all, but I didn't really. It was a fine time. We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix. Finally a Grady Hendrix book that I enjoyed. Then Heard It in a Love Song by Tracy Garvis Graves. Not a great romance. I didn't really feel a connection between the characters there. Then we had The White Album by Joan Didion. Absolutely loved it, but again, I wasn't rating anthologies at the time, but highly, highly recommend. So Stranger Things and the 80s, I didn't learn a lot from it. I already knew most of the stuff, but I still had a fine time reading it. Three Women by Lisa Taddeo, a book that I, again, highly recommend, just to know that every woman goes through things differently in life, and just because she is portrayed one way doesn't really mean that's the way she is. We had Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. Loved this book. Favorite. One of the best of the year. I don't want to say favorite, but I did love it. The Good Left Undone by Adriana Trigani. This one was fine, but I didn't really connect. A World Undone, The Story of the Great War by G.J. Meyer. I learned a lot about more of the eastern side of the First World War. I'm pointing south, but eastern side. I didn't know a lot about that, and this book really educated me on it. Speaking of, we have Educated by Tara Westover. Again, I didn't really enjoy it. The Iron King, this was a reread. I did enjoy my time reading it. And then The Strangled Queen by Maurice Druin, which is the second book in the series, I enjoyed even more. I just feel like the character work is great there. After the Flood by Cassandra Montag, it was fine. It's just Yeah, fine. The Lincoln Highway by Mortolas. This is another book that was overhyped. I gave it a 2 out of 5. Booth by Karen Joy Fowler. Absolutely loved, and it's making me go read all the books that were nominated for the Booker Prize. The Mist of Avalon was a fine time. I enjoyed the characters there. The Love Hypothesis, another just fine, average romance. I hated the side characters. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, loved the lore and world building that George R. R. Martin does, and how he just puts you in the shoes of his characters. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, love, love, love. A new favorite, and again, I love the characters and the gaming references and everything. I just really found it relatable and enjoyed. Then lastly, we have Circe, which is a 2 out of 5. I could not get myself to care for Circe or any of the other characters, and I didn't care for the plot, but the writing was beautiful and I loved the world that it was set in. Those are all of the books, all 106 of them, that I read in 2022. Let me know in the comments how many books did you read in 2022. If you made it all the way through the video, leave a book emoji down in the comments below. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!